So here we have kind of the last page in the unit. And what we've got here are student examples of explanations for how the unit circle connects to trigonometry. And basically what we've done in this unit is students have taken a common assessment, but then to really show their advanced understanding of the topic, they were given multiple options to create an explanation that could be reviewed by their instructor to really see how much they understood. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through a couple of those options with Brian Berlin and Deb Hassler, who are here to explain them. So let's take a look at the first one.
This student used the Google Draw template that we had used during a lesson. And in this, she was able to use the insertion of the triangles in the unit circles as a way to help her describe how the trig ratios relate to the unit circle. The written part of it, she can just write right on there and use those drawings to help reinforce her information.
So you gave her the visuals, she put the text in there and used the visuals to come up with an explanation for you.
Correct.
Okay. Let's take a look at the next one here.
In this particular student example, the student decided that the best way for them to show their understanding was to create their own document, electronic document, where they, again, created a written explanation, but reinforced that explanation with a table that has patterns involved. And I remember this student specifically saying that they learned this in a deeper understanding based upon those patterns that they saw.
So maybe this student looks at the digital template that you had and says that, but this doesn't really work for me, but I'm confident that I can come up with an explanation that will be accepted by my instructors. And so they develop their own table that makes sense to them.
Correct.
Okay. Let's take a look at the next one here.
This student decided to take advantage of the one of the oral options that we gave them, and that was to create a screencast video like you're actually watching right now, where their computer screen is projected and you can hear their voice. And they particularly like this option because they would rather voice their opinion and verbalize their understanding and verbalize their understanding through a video rather than create an actual written or typed document.
So a student could use the same digital template that you created. They could narrate it to you, moving things around as they narrate it.
Yep.
And then they could create a shareable link from the Google file.
Correct.
And then share it with you through Canvas.
Yes.
Okay.
Oftentimes students find it difficult to write math, but they can explain it. And they might not necessarily use the correct terminology, but they can definitely reinforce their knowledge through the video and the moving of the triangles. So this is really a positive situation.
And this would be a similar discussion if the student chose to do a one-on-one conversation with the teacher, that you would have a similar conversation that they would narrate, possibly use visuals, but it would be very a similar conversation, except the fact that the teacher would then be allowed to ask questions and further investigate their understanding.
So the goal here was to explain.
Yes.
Doesn't have to be written.
No.
Could be a video, could be a one-on-one explanation to a teacher. Did some of the students do a one-on-one explanation with you?
Yes.
So they did, rather than do the screencast option.
Yes.
Okay. Let's take a look at the next one here.
This student decided to not really use visuals and just created more of a document, a written document that would be very similar to someone verbalizing it, but decided to write it out and turn it in like a typical, almost like research paper format.
So this is a student that doesn't have the issue like Deb mentioned before, maybe with the language, even though it's difficult for some students. This student can handle that, and so their explanation would be considered good because it's playing to their skill level, but it also satisfies your requirement.
Yes.
And maybe the student wasn't comfortable having that one-on-one conversation with the teacher necessarily, or wasn't comfortable making a screencast and verbalizing it and just felt more comfortable just taking their verbalization and making it a document.
Okay. Let's go to the next one here.
This student decided that rather than making a digital copy, that they felt more, they had more freedom, especially in the diagramming and the symbolization, not having to worry about the digital complications when it comes to math symbols, that they would write out their explanation, handwrite it, as well as create their own handwritten pictures or diagrams to reinforce their understanding.
So trying to use a keyboard to input math symbols to kind of translate that, for some people, that's going to be a real struggle.
Yep.
Why let the technology be a barrier and get in the way? Why not just write it out?
Just write it out.
And some of the students, they interpret these ideas in a little bit different way. And as Brian said, this person is using their own diagrams in order to reinforce their understanding. So it's interesting to see their perspective on that, which might not necessarily go specifically with that diagram we gave them. So this is a really nice way for them to show their understanding in a little bit different way.
Okay. Let's go to the next one here, just a couple more. This one's kind of hard to see.
I personally like this one for the simple fact that they use color-coded diagrams to really organize their thoughts and to see the patterns of the triangles, which directly relate to the trig and the unit circle. And it's very easy to see with the paper copy that they turned in. The digital copy is hard to see. That they really did understand how the different colored triangles reflected the points and related to the trigonometry, and how each point was related based upon the color.
So this student definitely understood the entire unit circle concept as she or he transferred all of this information throughout the entire unit circle.
And when we reinforce this as instructors, we also use color coordination to show those patterns to organize their thoughts. So
that might have really helped that student.
Yep.
And then they wanted to use that as well to show you that they understood what you were trying to do, or that they understood the concept. Okay. Moving on to the next one here.
This student just chose to present the information in a poster format. And again, you can see that the student is creating their own type of table to organize their thoughts, use their own specific diagram to help organize the thoughts. You know, it's interesting. You can see they're trying to help us make connections by circling things and connecting them. And then as well, over on the left-hand side, they have the question answers. So, you know, very organized idea with thoughts, and yet creative enough that they can, you know, put it in a way that they feel is going to present their knowledge.
this student probably had an issue with space on a document that maybe we would provide on a sheet of paper or a template, and decided to utilize a canvas that had more space for them to write larger and have more space and freedom to put diagrams in appropriate spots.
And you had said before, this was a student that you have a hard time engaging sometimes in Algebra 2,
Yes.
but someone who likes to make posters
Yes.
and someone who told you they like to make posters.
Yeah.
And so, allowing her to make a poster and then kind of meeting her, halfway, something she likes to do, something that you were trying to teach her, and then she can show you that she understands.
And then this definitely, seeing her motivation levels and her engagement levels go up, definitely carried over into units that followed. That almost that momentum carried over into the next topics, and really helped her actually with the next topics of Algebra 2.
Okay, let's go to the last example that we have here.
Yeah, this is a nice one because I feel like UDL sometimes is people think of it as being designed for students that struggle, to help students that struggle. And it certainly does help students that struggle. But really UDL is geared for all students. And this is a great example of a high-level student, a high-level math student that finished Algebra 2, the course before we even did this, was finished the course literally 2 months ahead of time. But when we did this, when he had this opportunity to explain his understanding in a really further tell me his understanding and show me how much he understood, he really took advantage of this and loved this opportunity to create a really nice document, something probably, to be honest with you, better than I could even design, in a sense that, and really enjoyed the fact, because the student really loves math and really loves showing me how much he understands math, and really took advantage of this situation to show that, yes, I understood it, but this is how much I understood it.
It's really interesting, again, that you say UDL sometimes it does help those, the students that struggle. But again, if your assessment is the goal and it's not some specific item that you've created, it does allow students to go beyond, like you said, what you might have come up with.
Right.
It's been really interesting, but we are running low on storage space and time. So we will leave it at that with our last example and go back to the page here. And we will end